I don't know if we ever talked about this before, but I love sharing the story because it is just the transparent truth is if you had asked me for many years why I started the business, I would say, oh, because I love my boys and I love wearing their names and all that. And I was at an entrepreneur group and I had someone say, well, what's your why? And I said, because I love my kids. And he said, oh, there's got to be something more than that. And I said, well, that's my answer. And then he said, well, what's your relationship like with your mother? And I started to cry. And I was like, oh no, what's going on here?
Welcome in, friends. I'm Danielle Elliott-Smith, and this is Hope Comes to Visit. Today's conversation is with my friend, Melissa Clayton, who is the CEO and founder of Tiny Tags. She bootstrapped her vision, grew it into a beloved online jewelry brand, and brought a bespoke collection to more than 1,600 Target stores. You've likely seen her on Shark Tank, on the Today Show. But what I love most is her quiet courage behind her milestones. Melissa lives outside Boston, is a mom to 3 boys, and she's here to share the hope, hustle, and heart behind building something meaningful. Melissa, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me, Danielle. I love seeing old friends.
I know. I love that we could have this conversation. And, right before we started recording, I was saying that I had seen Tiny Tags in Target, and I have that secondhand excitement and pride whenever I see a friend's success. And it was so amazing for me to see you continuing to grow. So let's talk a little bit about where Tiny Tags came from and how it's grown over the years.
Sure. Well, thank you. And same to you. I love seeing your success and doing a podcast. I listen to podcasts. I'm driving to New York City this afternoon, so we'll podcast it the whole way. But the one thing with me is I think what comes with age, I lay it out on the table. So I've had the business for well over 15 years. So that overnight success has been 15, if not more years in the making. But bootstrapped, haven't never raised money, no investors. And that has been very much by design and just how I like to live my life. I think it always comes back to your value system. And luckily also just the nature of the business. It didn't require a lot of capital. I understand there's certain, whether it's cosmetics or certain industries require a lot of cosmetics or a lot of capital, but started the business very old school, hand stamping, had no background in jewelry making, and slowly started making for friends. And then really probably about 10 years ago, we kind of revamped the entire business, probably actually more like 12 years ago. And we went to fine personalized jewelry. Luckily for me, outside of Boston in Rhode Island is huge history of jewelry manufacturers. So we partner with like 2 or 3 manufacturers. We actually sit inside one of their buildings. They make Tiffany's, David Yurman, Tiny Tags. It's all kind of the same. And they make it, walk it over, and we send it out. So we've been doing an online business for years. And then the Target thing happened and this is whenever I talk to female entrepreneurs or anyone, is about building a brand, because I think it's so important, especially nowadays. And one of my favorite books was Brand Warfare. And I received an email from a buyer from Target in 2017. She said, would love to chat. And we chatted. And she said, would you ever consider Target? And I said, honestly, I can't even imagine it. It just seems so overwhelming at the time. But we said, let's stay in touch. And we did. And we did a bespoke collection, a $25 price point in 2023. And that was in 200 stores. And long story short, now we're in over 1,600. And I think one, it is a pinch me moment for me because Target, just the pure distribution and the getting our name out there. But I like to think that it all happened because we built a brand, which is really hard because you say no a lot. And I think she saw that we were really putting a stake in the ground, that we were going to talk about motherhood. We were going to be a vulnerable brand. We were going to be honest. And we were not trying to be everything to everybody. And I think that's why the whole Target thing happened. So, and I will say with a huge asterisk there, it's really hard even now to stay focused and not chase the shiny object, because There's a
So
lot
let's
of
talk about that focus a little bit, because I know that, so you and I knew each other back in the blogging world, right? We came into contact in conferences, and not only have I had Tiny Tags pieces, but it's so beautiful to me. I have a close girlfriend now, Tina. She loves her Tiny Tags piece, and she had it before I ever knew her. And it was really beautiful to see that on her years after you and I knew each other. And let's talk about the focus then. So what was the focus? Has the focus evolved?
Yep. So when I first started the business, I was trying just to sell anything to anybody. So on the website, the gift guide had brides, graduates, yogis, you name it. I was trying to make something for somebody. And I listened to that book, Brand Warfare, and I really took the time and said, okay, what do I really care about? And it was about talking about motherhood and about children and your village. So I literally went home and deleted everything off the website. And so that has always remained our focus. And sometimes it's hard because it's like, okay, well, then if you're really talking to just mothers and you're excluding people and you're not being inclusive. And I always think of it that one, everybody has a mother, even if you don't have a good relationship with her or she's no longer in your life, you had a mother. And I also think it is your grandmother if you were raised by your grandmother or your sister. Like I have a younger sister who growing up, I was like her mother. So it really is about who you love in your life. And that to me was what I knew I wanted to talk about. I wanted to have this emotional connection with our community. And, even now, we just launched TT Sport, which my husband has been wanting to do for years, to really talk about, like, to go after athletes. And I kept saying no, because I said, it's not in my heart and I have to feel it. And it wasn't until my oldest son went off to play lacrosse at college that I felt this real calling and this pulling to the sports world. Not because I wanted to be the flashy athletes, but because I was so thankful to sports of how it created instant community for him and how much of his identity was wrapped up in sports. And it was like, oh, now I could see as his mom wanting to wear his lacrosse number, because it really is kind of an acknowledgement of all that he has put into this journey of lacrosse. So
that here's what it made me think of instantly is the Thank You Mom campaign that Procter & Gamble always did around the Olympics. So I don't know if you remember ever seeing the ads. It was actually the first large scale campaign I did in the blogging world. I was the first person that any of the brands sent anywhere. They sent me to the Olympics to cover their Thank You Mom campaign. And the whole campaign is based around the idea that the Olympic athletes, it shows like moms getting their kids getting the athletes out of bed in the morning, and they're tying their skates and they're taking them to the rink and they're getting them ready. And then when they have those winning moments, it's like, thank you, mom, because it's their mom has been the person who has been with them on that journey. And obviously dads as well. But the campaign is thank you, mom. Right. So it's tying together that piece that you might be wearing that sport, but it's also your, as the mom,
didn't get there alone.
Right. Yeah. The person who's been taking them and in the stands, on the sidelines, showing up as a mom of two athletes. Well, many games.
I have to tell you, when was that campaign? How many years ago?
Let's see. They did it a number of Olympic games in a row. Yeah. I want to say the last time would have been 2016, probably.
Because we watched that as inspo for TT Sport. I swear to God, that was on our Slack channel. And we were like, that's what we need. That's the emotion we need to show so that is really funny. I did not know that you worked on that. That's very cool.
Yes. So, I mean, I did it a few times. So it's always been one of those series of commercials that I would look forward to even before I ever worked on that campaign, but it would make me cry, right? It was that emotion that hit me as a mom, thinking like, this is what I'm doing with my kids. I'm showing up, I'm there and I'm present. So I love that you are doing that. And when has that launched, or is that getting ready to launch?
A couple of weeks ago. And now we're obviously ready for holiday, and we feel behind that we're shooting holiday tomorrow. So, which is kind of late, but the TT Sport, we really put a lot of time and money into that campaign, more than we ever have. We went to North Carolina to shoot content. So that was a little bit of a distraction, but now we're marching forward with holiday.
This is so exciting. So one of the things, mentioning that you're self-funded, right? When I wrote Mom Incorporated with Lisa Sherman years ago, it was about women who start businesses, and typically they start small and they grow, which is a lot about what you're talking about. Very few go after venture capital, but even so, it means that you do have to say no a lot, and you do have to figure out what your focus is. What has been the most challenging piece of this experience for you over the last 15 years?
I think probably hiring the right people and kind of having to put the business first sometimes. I think I allowed bad people to stay. I shouldn't say bad people that were not a right fit, whether it was the energy they brought, their perspective. And this whole business has been built rooted in gratitude for every single day. When I have said, if you could sit where I have sat all these years, the amount of stories that we've heard that have just break your heart. You almost have to have that foundation of gratitude, I think, to really work here and thrive, because you can't talk to a mom of an angel and then get on a Zoom call and complain about something. It just never works for me. And I've allowed people that didn't belong in the company to stay on because I felt bad. I didn't want to fire them. And I think now I've learned that lesson. So I think HR has always been a challenge. And then I think it is also not looking at what everyone else is doing and be like, oh, I should do that. I'm not doing that. And which is why I love talking about tiny tags and the slow growth, because it does. Most of the companies that get the big headlines are the companies that have had an idea, raised money, and sold it for multi-millions, if not billions of dollars in 5 years. And that is the 1%, if not the 1% of the 1%. So I think I'm always having to go back to my why of why I love this company, that I really value my time. And I've built a business that has given me that. And so just kind of reminding yourself of those things.
Is this where you dreamed you would be?
It's funny. I would never have said I was a dreamer, which is, I always say I should have dreamed bigger. But I pinched myself. I was never someone that was like, oh, I can't wait to be a mom. I definitely think I always had the entrepreneurial bug. My dad was an entrepreneur. I grew up going to the office, stuffing envelopes, sweeping the floor. And even when I left corporate America, I was like, okay, I'm going to start something. I never thought I'd be in the jewelry space, but I think I'm more of a sales and marketer. And I think I would have found my way into the motherhood space, because I think that was something I was pulled to.
Do you have other avenues that you are planning to go? Not necessarily that you're planning on sharing just yet, but Do you have other big ideas?
No, I actually really think I could see having this business to the end. So it's funny. My oldest is in college now, and he interned with us this summer. And I was like, what if we kept this? Because it was always like, oh, we'll sell it at some point. And now I'm like, oh, I feel like it'd be really amazing if one of my boys wanted to join the company and it could be a family business. So, I am a busybody. My biggest fear of being an empty nester next year is, what am I going to do with at night, on the weekends? I love going. Right now I have 2 football games on the weekends. I love it. So I'm very thankful to have work to keep me busy. So
I think one of the greatest things about having these experiences, these up and these downs, and being self-funded, we get to learn from our mistakes. We get to learn what works and what doesn't. And I think one of the things you said was learning to say no. What lessons have you learned that you like to pass on to other women, especially who are moving into an entrepreneurial space, that you say, gosh, if I could go back and I was doing it again, these are the one or two things that I would definitely do or definitely not do?
I wish I had gotten a mentor earlier on. I DM a lot of people and I talk to a lot of people, because if someone that has done this before will give me 15 minutes of his or her time. So I wish I had found a mentor, and I wish that I had found this is a very practical advice. Every industry has a trade organization for the most part. They have conventions, even if it's like, model trains or something. There's conferences for these people. And I wish I had tapped into that space earlier, like the jewelry space. We spend a lot of time and money trying to find the right manufacturers and never realize that they actually all get together once a year. So I think things like that, like tapping into the trade organizations and the not-for-profit industries, or like the trade organizations that support the industry.
Okay.
That's practical.
Okay. What about from the heart side?
I think I listen to, I'm a big avid business book reader. So I think knowing your why was really important for me, which was Simon Sinek's book.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when things are not going well and you feel discouraged and you go back to your why, that can fill up your cup, because there's more competition than ever before. There are tons of jewelry companies that have raised a lot of money so they can do really cool, amazing campaigns that we can't afford to do. And it's really easy to be like, oh, I wish, but then I'll go back to like my deep why of it all. And then I'm like, okay, oh yeah, but I get to do this and I get to do that. And I know the moms that I have DM'd and the moms that we are lifting up. And I've always said, like, I never want us to market by deprivation. I want us to market that we are a place that mom comes to our website, they come to an event, whatever it is, our social, and they are reminded that joy is within them. It's not outside of them.
What has been the most surprising piece of having this business? The thing that hit you that you didn't, I mean, you knew you were starting a jewelry business.
Yeah.
But what has surprised you?
Well, I don't know if we ever talked about this before, but I love sharing the story because it is just the transparent truth. Is if you had asked me for many years why I started the business, I would say, oh, because I love my boys and I love wearing their names and all that. And I was at an entrepreneur group, and I had someone say, well, what's your why? And I said, because I love my kids. And he said, oh, there's got to be something more than that. And I said, well, that's my answer. And then he said, well, what's your relationship like with your mother? And I started to cry. And I was like, oh no, what's going on here? And I've been really more transparent about this. I grew up with my dad. My mom lived in New York. I grew up with my dad outside of Boston. And the truth was my mom did struggle to show up. And I said to him, oh, well, I grew up with my dad and what have you. And then on the drive home and the couple of weeks that followed, I definitely thought about, wow, like it is a little bit weird that here I was, a kid that maybe didn't feel celebrated by her own mother. And now I'm in the business of celebrating children and sort of screaming from the rooftops, hey, moms, it's okay to show up as your imperfect self. Just show up, that your kids need you. They don't need you to be perfect. They just want you. And I was like, oh God, that's so like Freudian, but it can't be true. And it wasn't like I went home and I like threw it on the website. I just sort of sat with it. But then I did an interview one time. We were trying to do like the story of the business, and it was just like, oh my God, like I couldn't even get through talking about my mother. And then the producer, who was a friend, she was like, Missy, like your mother's in every single tiny tags you make. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was such a beautiful way to say it. But then I had another aha moment, was when I realized that my mom, and again, so much of all these ahas have been from the stories that we hear from our community, was my mom's inability, her inability to show up was never about her love for me. It was about the lack of love she had for herself. Mm. And then I felt like, okay, I really want to talk about what it really means to love yourself. Because sometimes I think in like the social media world, it looks like a spa day. that's not the type of self-reflection and love yourself that I think our women need to be talking about. It's taking the time to heal and address, confront, whatever that looks for you, kind of like what you're bringing to your journey of motherhood. So we don't just rinse and repeat. And that to me was the real aha moment for this whole business, that there really was this wanting to connect to motherhood and understand it, because I don't think I never had motherhood as this beautiful thing in my life. Because then on top of it all, then my dad had gotten remarried when I was in kindergarten, and she was my mother for like 8 years. And I called her mom. I lived with her. And then they got divorced, and she said, "Oh, we're done." And I was like, "Oh, like, so motherhood is really not,
it's not a permanent thing."
Yeah. But I always say, like, there's with my mom, she was an 18-year-old pregnant teenager, knew my dad for 45 days. And, they got married. And back then, he was Italian, she was Irish Catholic. Like, that's a no-go. And her whole journey of motherhood was filled with shame and fear. And that was what I wanted to talk about, because I see now all these young moms that are doing the comparison game, that their nursery doesn't look like this, their maternity photos, their baby gender reveal. And and fine if you want to do all that, but can we have a conversation and be a place that is saying, you know what, you can do all that, but none of that's actually preparing you for motherhood. What's really going to prepare you for motherhood is make sure your heart is right. You love yourself, your relationship with your in-laws, your parents, your sisters, your village. That to me is how you really should prepare for motherhood. And then if you do all that, then you have a shot at showing up for your kids, because that's really we all want to be the best version of ourselves for our kids.
Right.
And I just think if you don't unpack all that crap, it's just going to show up in other ways.
Well, and so much of what you're saying is, our insides don't match the outsides of what everyone else is showing. Right. And it's such a danger of that social media world that you and I were growing up in. As early mothers, right? We're spending so much time, and that comparison game starts to say,
see, I'm older than you. I did not have social media with my kids. And I think that is what I'm seeing now is the difference. So, but yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I started blogging when my kids were 3 and 1 and 3, I think, right in that range. And it was just so interesting to watch. It was a very, very, very early days of blogging. There was very little other social at the time. It was more just blogging and Twitter.
Right.
We didn't have all the stuff we have now. So it's a completely different game now. But I wrote a lot about the comparison game. I wrote a lot about moms judging other moms, because I really strongly believed we were all just doing the very best we could. And it wasn't for anyone to say that anyone should be doing it any one way or any other way. But I like what you say about really getting yourself and your village in order, and that really being such a huge piece. But it makes me think about the world piece of the tiny text jewelry that I had.
Oh, the reflection coin pendant. Yeah.
Yes. It was just so beautiful. And I always get so many compliments on it, because it is such a reflection of that duality of motherhood, me and what's important to me, all the different pieces of who I am, and me as a mother. And I love that. I love everything that you are bringing to motherhood and all it encompasses.
Yeah. And I just think it's important as like an older mom now, I just want us to have the conversation, because I do think, I DM with a lot of young moms, and so much of motherhood is now, I always laugh. I'm like, no one would even see my nursery. Like, I put a tee up for Tyler. That was it. I went into the office, I put a tee up, and that was his nursery. And now the idea that people are spending so much money on a nursery, so much money on all these things. And I would say if the number one cause for divorce is money, and you're starting off when I have moms DMing me that they're putting their gender reveal parties on their credit card and all of this, and they're getting financially stressed. And it's like, can we have a conversation about what really matters as we prepare for becoming a mom? And I just think there's a lot of young moms out there that look to brands like us to say, you know what, like we always look like we want to be like a big sister. Like, it's okay if you don't do all that, just so you know. And your kid will never look back at your nursery and be like, gee, thanks, Mom, for the amazing nursery. But they will say, thank you for putting money away for my college.
Yes.
So I can go to the college of my choice, or I'm able, and even if it's not college, it's, hey, here's some money I saved for you for down payment to a house. I mean, I say to my husband, how are our kids ever going to afford a house?
Right.
Anyway, and it's not about a shame game. Like, if you want to do all that, you do that. But I just think there's a place for the conversation and just changing it a little bit, because I do think there is I hear from a lot of young moms that feel pressure to do all this stuff as they're preparing for, motherhood.
Has there ever been a point during this whole process that you thought maybe this isn't going to work?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and we still always wonder. I mean, there are so many brands that raise a lot of money. But that's why, like I've said to my husband, if it all ended tomorrow, we would have no regrets that we've been able to do. I mean, he does it to work, and he gets to coach at night and do the things that he loves, because was his dream. And that if it ended tomorrow, we would still be very thankful for the journey. And I think that's, for me, I'm very focused on the journey of it, not just, okay, let me try to make as much money as possible so I can go lay by a pool all day. That's never been my goal. So I'm just focused on today, holiday, and making sure that we do have 5-year plans and 10-year plans, but we understand that something could change. And who's to say, maybe if someone did say, hey, a right partner, I want to invest and help you take your vision to be bigger and better. Maybe. I would never say no to, I'm always open. But right now, we've been enjoying our team right now is amazing. And I feel like we're heading in the right direction.
I know I saw you post recently on LinkedIn that Meghan Markle had worn a piece of Tiny Tags. What was that moment like for you?
That was pretty amazing. And I love to share, because that was pure hustle. That was not a PR firm. I always give 2 pieces of things that have worked for me. Is one, talk to everyone that you meet, because everyone knows something that you don't. And the good old fashioned art of hustling is, a woman I know is a writer, and she came to a pop-up that we were doing, and she was like, oh, you got to get Meghan Markle a Tiny Tags. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I don't know where to send it. And she said, I'm interviewing her at 4:00 today. I said, can I be the thank you gift? And she was like, I love that idea. So that was how we got her the necklace. And then I didn't actually think she'd wear it, to be honest. And then we were just watching everything that she was doing, and we saw it, and it definitely was a run around the kitchen moment. Just because you're like, okay, she's got, I mean, I hate that people don't like her, because I'm like, come on, we got to do better as women. But
I love her.
I mean, I think no one has ever been in her shoes. So right. I feel like, who's to judge? But I think she's a style icon. And for her to wear Tiny Tags was very cool. So we were very excited about that.
Well,
and the piece was gorgeous. So
it's very exciting. Congratulations. Yeah. And I'm excited for you, because when you have someone who is a style icon wear a piece of jewelry that you've created, that is a beautiful moment. Kind of, yeah. Absolutely. Where do your ideas for jewelry come from?
So we have a jewelry designer on staff, so I won't pretend to be some wonderful jewelry designer. I always say, like, in the beginning, I was like, anyone can put a name on a circle, but now we definitely have. Our lockets are gorgeous, and that was the piece that she was wearing. And our launch, we've already teased them out. We have these gorgeous keys that are launching for holiday. So the jewelry designer does a lot of the inspiration now. But I mean, I look around, I mean, whether you're on vacation or somewhere and just seeing what other people are doing or trend reports. But I think for us, it has always been about the personalization is what makes our pieces special, and that you can do back engraving, and whether it's your kid's birth time or birth weight. I mean, one of my favorite stories was when a mom, she put their kid's birth weight and there was like 1 pound, 9 ounces, and she had twins. And this was years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, are these babies okay? And I found her on the internet and I found that they were healthy. And then we did a whole story behind the tag with her. And then we did a follow-up story when they were like 3 years old. So that to me has always been, it's the storytelling that Tiny Tags does really well that I love.
See, I love that. Storytelling is obviously where my heart is. So it's amazing. How do you define hope, Melissa?
How do I define hope? I think it's those quiet moments when you have to look within you. I think that is when I feel hope. And I think hope when I look at children and their natural joy, and you see them playing, whether it's coming in through your Instagram feed or you're at a park, just the beauty of children. And I think that gives me hope that we are innately good, kind people that love each other. I think the world can feel pretty dark sometimes. And I think when you're around children and their laughter, we have a neighborhood pool that my kids, we grew up going to, a very basic neighborhood pool. And all summer when I walk by and I walk my dog, I hear the kids laughing and playing, and it pulls at my heartstrings. And it really is, that gives me hope. So.
Well, you are an inspiration, and it is always such a joy to be able to talk to you. Where can everyone find Tiny Tags?
Well, our website is tinytags.com. Our Instagram is tinytags. And my email, I will always share my email, is melissa@tinytags.com, because I love talking to other women, and always, whether it's just to talk shop, you name it, I'm always available. So
you are delightful. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Well, thank you. And congratulations to you for this podcast. I love it.
Thank you so, so much. And friends, thank you for joining us on Hope Comes to Visit. I hope we have met you exactly where you are today, and that you will take the time to share this episode of Melissa and Tiny Tags. And you will join us again the next time you are tuning into a podcast. Please take very good care of you until the next time we are able to join you.